Hello and welcome along to Mondo Chelloveck Movies. My name is John, and this video is going to be what movies I've watched in the month of February 2023. First of all, I can't believe it's actually March. It's just nuts how this whole year's went, never mind the fact that February feels like it lasted a week. So I'll begin with my favourite movie of the month. It is Elvis. Bet you couldn't guess that. I'll leave a link down below to my video that I made of this movie, because I enjoyed it that much, but it's definitely my favourite one. It blew me away, this movie. So if you want to know my full thoughts on this movie, go on and check that separate video down below. So highly recommended. That's Elvis. So first of all, I watched, this is a bit of a spoiler alert for a forthcoming video, Mr. Vampire. Now this was gifted to me by my good friend John Hall, and this will be talked about more on a video coming up. So when I was watching this movie, I thought, I wonder if they've got the other sequels here, because I know they've made other sequels. And then literally, just the other day, it was announced that they're releasing all the other ones in a box set from Eureka. And they're going to release 2, 3, 4, and 5, I think it is. So that's a definite purchase. So this one is the first one. And I love this movie. I've always loved this movie. But I hadn't seen it for the longest time. I remember taping this off Channel 4 when they used to show movies like this way back when. And this presentation is fantastic. The slipcover in here is absolutely amazing. It's delicious. And the movie itself, from 1985, it's so much fun. It's more like a comedy, but it's got these bouncing vampires, which I'm a big fan of, and I can't wait to see the box set that comes out with this. But highly recommended. But check the trailer out, because if you're expecting a kind of Hammer movie, you're mistaken. This is more like a fun romp. I would say this is more closer in a fashion to Big Trouble in Little China-ish, but it's very much a martial arts kind of take on it. Actually, there's some good martial arts in this movie, but this movie is more like a comedy to me. It also stars the amazing Moon Lee, and I can't wait for the other ones to come out. So that's Mr. Vampire. Next up, we watched Roadhouse. Now I'd said to the Debs, I'd say, look, would you want to watch this movie, because I want to watch it like really quickly. She goes, well, all right then, what is it? And I says, well, it's kind of just like an 80s cheese fest. So I put it on. We had a great time with it. I think the quality on this is absolutely sensational. It's one of the best 4Ks I've ever seen. This presentation from Vinegar Syndrome has got to be one of the best ones I've ever owned, and love it in that. But honestly, this movie, it's been so long since I've seen this movie, even though I really enjoyed it, and it was better this time around, because I think probably when I watched it when it came out around about 88, it's one of those movies where you thought it's quite good, it's got some good elements into it, but I didn't really sort of get the cheese fest of it till watching it like as an older person. But highly recommended. And this one, if you can't get your hands on this one, I do urge you to get this one, because it's so good. But if it does get released over here somewhere by 88 and use the same transfer, I really urge you to pick this up. It's one of the best 4Ks you'll ever see of like an older movie. That was Roadhouse. Next up, I watched Silver Bullet. Big shout out to John Hall for hooking me up with this title. This is a movie I've been after seeing for a long time, and I can't remember if I saw this way back when, although one of the characters in here I do remember this character for some reason. I don't know why. And this is a great movie. It's got a great presentation from Umbrella. This is an Australian company. The title of the movie, Silver Bullet, refers to the chair that Corey Haim has built for him to get him around, like a wheelchair, but they call it the Silver Bullet because it's got some kind of souped up. Really enjoyed this movie. One of the movies that you can't really get in the UK, unfortunately, but if you can find this and import it, I'll get your hands on it. I do urge you to see it, because it's a really good movie. It deserves a really good, nice 4K. I think it would translate very well. That's Silver Bullet. Next up, I watched Steel and Lace. Now, Steel and Lace, I want to give a big shout out to Phil 4K Baker for hooking me up at a great price of this absolutely delicious Vinegar Syndrome release. This is one that I wanted to see. I looked at it and I thought, this looks all right. And then when I saw that this girl here, this woman, was a cyborg, I thought, well, kind of. I thought, yes, I think I'll have to check this one out, because I'm a big fan of robots. Now that there, I thought was a flower, but it's actually something that comes out of a chest and digs into people. So there's a lot of things. This movie is so good. In fact, if Elvis hadn't been around, this would have been my movie of the month. It's got a great cast in here, featuring David Norton. This is just such a good movie. So the short story on here, and you find this out in the first 5 minutes. that this girl here gets attacked by a gang, and she goes to court, and the gang get away with it, and they're kind of laughing at her. So she can't handle the fact, so she jumps off the roof of the court. Now she comes back modified, and she goes on a rampage for revenge with this gang. Now it's not just as simple as that. I want to leave a few things out, so when you watch it you'll get the same sort of surprise that I did. But it's a really gory, this movie. I think it's from about 1991. It just really blew me away with the fact of it just being such a really good, watchable movie. Yes, it's very exploitational, but it's got something about it that I really enjoyed. And if you can get your hands in it and see it, I really urge you to get it. That's Steel and Lace. Next up, with another big shout out to Phil 4K Baker, I watched Creature. Now this movie here is basically, if you think of Alien, you're halfway there. So the director of this movie, William Malone, he's done a really good job in this movie. Actually, it looks quite like it's not got a big budget to it, but it looks like it has, which is movies I like that. Where they do really try hard to be a movie that's not just cheap, throwaway rubbish. But this is really recommended. This I was like quite taken with it, and I was quite. The characters in here, I love the characters. It's got like a big group of characters, a bit like Alien, and they're very likable, but very gory as well. And just a really good, just look at that slipcover, amazing slipcovers. So yeah, so highly recommended that one. That's Creature. Also another shout out to Phil Baker. I watched Scared to Death. Now Scared to Death is by the same bloke, William Malone. He did this movie, which is about 1980, and that's about 1985. And I love this movie. This movie's got two cuts. I watched the longer cut, which is quite, it's like a director's cut, director's new updated cut of it. And to be honest, I think the other cut is longer for some reason. So I will watch the other cut, because you get both versions on here. Now, what this movie is, and he must be a big fan of these sort of creatures, this fella, because what it is somebody has made this creature in a laboratory, and it goes on a rampage, but nobody knows that this killer is actually this genetically modified creature, and it's like a kind of bit like a slasher with this monster in it. But the characters in here, the two characters, it's like a sleuth. I'd like to say he's more like a sort of private eye, but he's been on the bottle and he's down on his luck. And he works with the police, but the police don't like him, or one of the sort of governor of the police does not like this fella. And the investigator wants to get this private eye to work with him, but his boss won't let him. So that's quite a good little thing going on in that movie. And also, the investigator gets with one of the people that's been sort of to do with this case, and it's just such a great sort of relationship between those two characters. Is one of the best things I've like really taken with it. And even to the point of when this woman, the partner, was in peril, I was going, oh, don't let anything happen to her. So I was so invested with this movie. I really do urge anybody that thinks that these movies are kind of ones that you watch and you just throw away and you think, well, what's the point of them? Sometimes they're picking out these kind of gems from forgotten times. I never even heard of this movie. Never heard of this movie before. I heard of Titan Find, which is the UK sort of cut of it. Haven't heard of Steel and Lace, but these ones are just blown us away. I can't wait to watch the other couple I've got over there. So highly recommended. But I had so much fun with this movie. I can't wait to watch the other cut, which I believe is slightly longer. So that's Scared to Death. Next up, we watched Yes, Madam. This is the one with Michelle Yeoh and Cynthia Rothrock. This has got some amazing kung fu in it, of the two ladies in this movie. We watched the longer cut, which probably has more comedy in it. The shorter cut would probably just have more action in it to take more of the comedy out. You tend to do this with most of these Asian cinema releases, but spectacular. And again, you've got this amazing slipcover. And yeah, can't big up this one enough. I can't wait to get the other ones that are getting released by Eureka to do with Cynthia Rothrock and Michelle Yeoh. So that's Yes, Madam. That's the name for the police over there. When they call them, it's like, yes sir, yes madam. Next I watched I Miss You, Hugs and Kisses. This was a Valentine's Day present of the Debs. Wow. And it's a funny film because it's a previously banned video nasty, and it has got some. I can see the bit that it got banned, which got cut out when it was released over here. I can understand why it was banned, although it's not too much stuff. If you take that scene out, there's nothing in this movie. There is some gore in it, but it's quite a strange movie because a lot of it is based on a true case, and I looked up the true case that it was based on, and actually it was quite interesting to see that what had come of the people in this case. But what happens is that this is not a spoiler. This woman gets killed, and it's about who actually killed her, and it gives you all these kind of weird scenarios, and because you see her getting killed quite a few times, and you'll understand what I mean by that when you see it. Why did they do that? But they did it for to kind of throw you off the scent. It's a little bit odd to try and explain it. The quality of it isn't the greatest quality, but it's a nice Blu-ray. It's not bad at all. It's a lovely presentation, lovely slipcover this, and I'm amazed that it actually came out. The movie's from 1978, but it's a courtroom drama. So do know that I would say it's about 50-50 with the courtroom, and then it goes back into explaining certain things, then goes back to the court. But I found it to be quite a really interesting movie, especially the fact that this is they had to change a few things, but not much. And you think, what? This has really happened? Apparently it was the longest running case in Canadian history, I believe. So that's kind of highly recommended, but don't expect you're going to get a bloodbath. There is gore in it, and don't expect it's too exploitational, but there is a couple of bits in it. But yeah, so that's I Miss You, Hugs and Kisses. So with watching the Elvis movie, I had to go and watch Blue Hawaii with Elvis. This is one of the movies that I remember being a really big fan of. I don't like all of his movies, although I'm interested in seeing more of his movies because I haven't seen them for a long time. I used to collect them, actually take them off the TV. I had quite a few on VHS from the TV. This one here looks stunning in 4K. Some of the scenes in it are there's varying qualities in some of the scenes, but some of the scenes are that sharp and colourful. It's just unreal what it's like. So when I first started watching this, after about 15 minutes, I thought, has this actually got any more of a story than just him being in Hawaii? But it has actually. It comes quite good towards the end, and it's got a good like sort of backstory to it, and it's fun. It's nothing more than that. But I found this to be one of the better Elvis films. That's why I bought it. I mean, it looks sensational. If they do more of these on 4K, I'll definitely go and buy them because I just think that his movies are quite unique, shall I say. And they're not for everybody, but I think they're great and to varying qualities. So on the back of that, I did watch off Sky Movies Fun in Acapulco. That was from 1961. This is 1963. This was a really good movie, although I must admit the songs in it were pretty poor. I think there's only one, Bossa Nova Baby, which is a great song. The rest of them were kind of instantly forgettable. They were quite atrocious, actually. Can't think I've even heard any of the other songs on it, unfortunately. But the story about this is this guy goes to this resort in Acapulco, and he wants to get a job as working as a lifeguard in the pool in the hotel. Now, strangely enough, he's got this really big fear of the high board, and it's really strange in the story because there's a bloke in there, and he says to this fella who owns the place, who gets him as a singer for this, and he's got a sort of young kid who takes him. He's the manager of him, Elvis. It's an odd. They do have these odd things in these storylines. Ursula Andress is in here as well, and Elvis goes to work in this pool. But what he does is sort of straight away, the fella who's in there, who's a bit of a piece of work and he's a high diver, Elvis tries to muscle him out immediately, and they form this like hatred of each other, which I thought that's a bit odd. It was like straight away, and Elvis seems to have got this bad opinion of this bloke, but it becomes a little bit more apparent that the fact that Elvis has got this fear of this high board, but there's a story behind that. So this movie has got a bit, you can say, a story. It's not a great story, but it's a story that I found to be quite enthralling. Actually, the songs, apart from one, Bossa Nova Baby, are pretty hopeless actually. But Hello from Hawaii, Blue Hawaii has a lot more of songs, and there's some strange, stupid songs like Kicking Sand, that song about kicking sand in people's faces, which is a bit what? Anyway, that's what you get in Elvis. So this one, this is another one. It looked great on HD and in Sky Movies. So if this ever come out in 4K, I would definitely get it. That's fun in Acapulco. So next, with me being on a bit of a Vinegar Syndrome kick, I watched Nothing Underneath. Then also it's got another movie in here, Too Beautiful to Die, which I will get around to watching. So I watched Nothing Underneath, and this movie is a great movie actually. Never heard of it before. Never heard of this one either. But this concerns a kind of a place in Italy where there's all these like supermodels, and they work at this they live in this hotel. There's a fella at the start who has a twin sister, and he has this psychic connection with her, and he kind of sees her getting abducted in his mind. So he travels across to Italy to go and try and track her down to see where she is, but he thinks that something bad's happened to her. And that's him trying to find out through this psychic connection to see what's happened to his sister. And in the middle of that, he gets mixed up with all these supermodels. So it's got a 4K restoration, and this movie is out in the UK under Nucleus Films. Now, another thing is that Donald Pleasence is in this movie, and now what he does is he plays this Italian detective. He's got a really strange attitude in this movie where he just can't be bothered with this bloke who keeps coming to him and saying, look, I think my sister's been abducted, and he just doesn't really care less about it. But it changes as the movie goes along, and I think actually Donald Pleasence plays an absolutely brilliant part in this. There's some really kind of funny bits in it as well, but I thought it was an amazing film. It looks spectacular. If you get your hands on it in the UK, do go and check it out. It's a modern day giallo. I think it's from about 1989. So thanks to John Ho for hooking me up with that one. That's Nothing Underneath. Next we watched Bullet Train. Now this come on Sky Movies, and I watched it in ultra high definition, and actually the Debs was more interested in watching it than I was. I did want to see it, and she said one night, Howie, let's watch this one. So I watched it, and we had a blast with it. This movie is so good. It's one of those ones that when you watch it, you think, I'm watching something special here. Originally I thought this movie was 3 hours long, but it's actually only 2 hours long. I don't know where I got that one from. But this is, everyone in here is great. All the characters are just amazing. Brad Pitt plays this sort of kind of hippie in a way, hippie hitman. But it's brilliant. The cinematography is amazing. It looked spectacular. Can't wait to get this on 4K. We had an absolute blast with it. It's such a great fun. It's got a lot of gore in it, to be honest, and that's got everything for me. Can't wait to see it again actually on 4K. That's Bullet Train. Obviously, with me watching Elvis, I decided to watch another part of Elvis after his movies. I watched That's the Way It Is. That's a concert movie, this one. Now this one's a DVD. It was filmed in Technicolor, which means that it looks great even on DVD. So if this comes out on 4K, it will look unbelievable. Now I think that that's not from this concert. I think that's from 1972, and this concert's from 1969, 70, early 1970. Now what they did with this special edition was they took the movie, which I've got on VHS. It's got a lot of people's opinions. They go to the crowd and they say, what about, they've got people screaming and talking and everything. They cut all of that out, and they put extra songs in it. So this is the definitive version at this point of this movie, even spot glossing on there. And I've got to say that I love this movie anyway. I've seen it countless and countless times, but some of the performances on here are brilliant. You get the fact that he's talking about the fact of him coming out of making these films, and he's going to go back and go to live situations, which he's you can tell he's a bit scared about, because he's acting the goat at the start of it. He's kind of being a bit daft, but I think that's more nerves than anything else. And I don't know, this is one of his best concerts. If you want to see Elvis, probably at the height of his powers, this is one of the places to start. He looks sensational in here. I think he's about 35 when he did this movie, and it makes you think that he should have done. The Colonel is the other, what a piece of work he was. He kind of steered him in the wrong direction. If he'd been able to do more things like this in the 60s, it would have been brilliant to have that, because you had the whole 60s kind of missing live performances from Elvis to a certain extent. Anyway, highly recommended if you want to see some concert of Elvis just being, the man. That's the way it is. Next up, I watched Nope. Did I enjoy it? Originally I would have said nope. But it's weird because I put it on and I heard people saying to various extents this movie isn't that great. It's definitely not Jordan Peele's best movie. And it isn't. Of the three of them, it's the one I liked the least. But when I watched it after I finished work and I fell asleep during it. Because it's, to be honest, for the first half or the first hour, nothing really happens to a great extent. And so what I thought of when I fell asleep through a part which kind of meant something to the movie. And when I woke up again, I watched the end of it and I thought, I don't like that at all. Now, when I was telling the Debs about it, I says, I don't know. She says, what do you think of that movie? And I says, well, to be honest, I don't know what I make of it. It seemed like a movie about nothing. So, but what I'd said to her, I started telling her about the movie and I said, there's a bit in it that's not a spoiler alert, this, and I haven't got a clue what it's about, and everyone's going to know who's seen it. It's the chimpanzee. What on earth was that about? The chimpanzee, actually it's a good song title, this, The Chimpanzee in the Shoe. But she says, what are you telling me for? And I said, well, you're not going to watch it. He says, no, I want to watch it. I says, you want to watch this? She goes, yeah, I want to watch it. I says, all right. I says, well, I'll tell you what, I'll watch it again with you. But what I did after that was I went back and watched a bit of the movie that I didn't see. And on reflection, I thought, you know what? This is quite an intriguing movie, and I can't wait to watch it actually again with her in full. And we'll go through it. I'm excited to see what she makes of it. And yeah, so it's odd for me to say that originally I thought this was just just something or nothing. But on reflection, I'm quite intrigued to watch it for the second time. But like I say, this chimpanzee, what on earth was that about? There'll probably be some really weird explanation to it, but the 4K on here is sensational. It looks amazing in the dark scenes. I've never seen nothing like it. At the end of it, it's all the IMAX shots, and it's brilliant. I've got to say it's eye candy to the next level. But yeah, if you do watch this movie, do know that you might have to take 2 watches to enjoy it. But yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of head scratching to do with it. But I really did enjoy it. I think I did. That's Nope. Next up with a shout out to my good friend Graham Trail. I watched From Beyond, the Vinegar Syndrome 4K. The 4K on this looks absolutely spectacular. It's a great movie. If you haven't seen it, if you know of Reanimator, this is kind of like its unofficial sister movie. It's just a great movie. And I hadn't seen it for that long length of time, so I thought I've got to watch this. So I watched this immediately. The Blu-rays on here are Region A locked, but the 4K isn't. This looked so good. And obviously when you know Vinegar Syndrome's involved with something, you know they're going to do something good. So yeah, you were never thinking that it would look anything bar excellent. Highly, highly recommended this movie. This movie takes place with this character here, who's found this machine that can get this sort of into your head and release this thing that can see this into this another dimension. And when you see these things, and then if you see them and go close to them, they see you and attack you. And it's great. I mean, you've got Ken Faree in here. He's got a brilliant character. Actually, with the unrated, the director's cut this one. It's really gory. And some of the special effects they're doing it looks a little bit dated at times, but it's got some really good practical effects. Sometimes it's borderline like The Thing. It's got that really, I think Mark Shostrom, he's involved with this, and he's one of these great directors that does all these really crazy animatronic effects. So you're in for a treat if you like your practical effects. And like I say, the 4K is astounding. So can't recommend that highly enough. The film is absolutely brilliant, and I want to thank Graham Trail once again for hooking me up with this one. So that's From Beyond. So next I watched, and actually I've got something to unbox here, so I'll unbox this. This came the other day, and I did it on the back of watching a trailer of that movie I got there. Now, the movie I watched was a movie, I was going to say in one, no, not Deep Folly. Oh, double Deep Folly. No, that's treble Deep Folly. What a disaster. So the movie I picked up here, well actually this was about £3.69. I think it's down to £2.21 now. If you want this movie, do get it over to it on Amazon. It is Ghosts of Girlfriends Past. Now the movie I saw the trailer on is this one. It's called He's Just Not That Into You. Now this is up there, and if you saw my shelf one there, there's a load of movies there I got from Poundland, and I went through them. I will go through them systematically. And I saw this one, I thought, you know, it's a long movie. It's just over 2 hours, which always put me off a little bit because I wanted to watch like shorter movies in there. So this is a rom-com. It's got an absolutely amazing cast there. That's one of the things that really stuck out for me. Now this girl here, she's called Ginny Goodwin. I've never heard of her before, but she's like the main character in it. I'll tell you what, she plays a brilliant part in it. The basic premise of this movie is all these people are intertwined, kind of. Now she goes on a date with him, and he doesn't really want anything to do with her. He's just not that into her. And she meets a friend of his in a bar and asks him why he doesn't want anything to do with him. And he just says, he's not phoned you back because he's just not into you. She says, well, what do you mean? It looked like he was. He says, well, he's not. He hasn't phoned you back. So it's one of those things where she's trying to find like a partner, and she's going through all these problems, and then you get the sort of other people that kind of half know or kind of know this person knows that person, and it talks about their relationships with each other. And I tell you what, I thought it's going to be all right, but it was a really good movie. I was so invested in it, I couldn't wait. I watched half of it because I was that tired. I had to watch the other half the next day. And I was dying to see what happened with these various people who were like couples and that. And it's got some great extras when you see what's happened to them, like after the movie was made, supposed to be there, sort of catching up with them and the relationships, who gets with who and that. It's a great movie. 2009 it was made. Got a lot of extras on there. And it's just a really I'm not really that much into romantic comedies, but this one just really was just a good movie, and I really enjoyed it. And I think I say her performance was absolutely so like incredible and like unbelievable. So when I put this movie on, this one was on the trailer. Never seen this before, and even seen it in the shops. But it looked like it had a really good story. It's about this this fella who just goes with girls and he just uses and abuses them. And I think they're all, I don't know how they do it, but they all sort of meet up and they go through his life and say, you know, how the fact of like what he is and that. And I think he has a bit of moment of realization and like, you know, he's done everything wrong, and he goes and tries and puts everything right. And I do like Matthew McConaughey, even though I've just spent 5 minutes trying to say his name. Wow. Yes, and Jennifer Garner. No, I just thought, why not? And like I say, it was only a couple of quid, and it's only £2.21 at this moment, I think, on if you want it off Amazon. So yeah, so don't often get these movies and watch these movies, but when I do watch them and I like them, I think they're very rewatchable. Okay, so wow, what I want to end on. So thanks for watching, you take care, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.
Oh my god, what a fabulous room. Are all these your guitars? My god, this place is bigger than my apartment. That is Pink Floyd, by the way. The Wall. Brilliant stuff.
It looked quite interesting from there, and I do like Matthew McConaughey. McConaughey. And I do like Matthew 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 McConaughey. Well, McConaughey. And I do like Matthew McConaughey. And I do like Matthew McConaughey. And I do like Matthew McConaughey. McConaughey. And I do like Matthew McConaughey. McConaughey. And I do like Matthew McConaughey, even though I've just spent 5 minutes trying to say his name.